Today, I want to talk to you about one of the Philippines' most luscious desserts, sansrabal. Just look at all those layers.
So sansrabal isn't an easy cake to make because it takes a lot of time, but I'll walk you through it, and there are two main steps, the cashew wafer and the buttercream. So first let's talk about the cashew wafers. You're going to want to take eggs and separate them. The egg whites are for the wafer and the yolks are for the buttercream. Now I'm making a double recipe here because it's a special cake and I want to make a huge one and put half in the freezer to take out for special occasions. You can always half my recipe. So take 12 eggs and separate and whip up those 12 egg whites. Now you want to get them nice and foamy. We're looking for soft peaks to start off. To me they look kind of like soap suds, and that's how I know it's time to start adding the sugar. So I take about 1.5 cups of plain white granulated sugar once it gets to this nice foamy stage, and then I slowly add it in. So gradually add that sugar into the soft peaks. And as you do, the meringue will start to stiffen up and to become glossy and ready to mix in with the cashews. Now the trick here is not to overmix or undermix, and while that doesn't sound really helpful, here are a few tricks. It's not ready unless it looks kind of like a perfect shiny mountain of egg. You're looking for a really shiny surface and stiff. So my trick is take off the beater, and if it holds its shape when you turn it upside down and right side up, it's probably stiff. If you're a little bit braver, you can take the entire bowl off and turn it upside down. If it doesn't fall on the counter or on your head, then you're just right. Okay, let's talk about the cashews. Some restaurants will use peanuts. Please don't do that. It's not a real sansrabal if it's not made with cashews. That's why it's one of the most luxurious desserts. Take 3 cups of cashews and grind them down either in a blender or a food processor until they're roughly chopped like this, and save about 1/3 cup of it for chopping later. Then put it back on the food processor or blender and blend it down until it becomes almost a powder or a rough flour. I recommend pausing every now and again to scoop up the bottom so that you don't get a pasty, clumpy bit at the bottom. Once that's down to a fine powder, it's time to mix it in with the meringue. Add 2 teaspoons of vanilla to your meringue and then gently fold in the cashew powder. Use a gentle stirring motion like this, folding it over and under again and again until everything is nicely incorporated. Don't overmix it or you'll deflate all the bubbles. Just mix it until when you lift up your spatula, it will fall into a nice even ribbon. So this is one of the most crucial parts of the preparation. I recommend using a silk hat liner on an upside down baking sheet. This makes it super easy to lift the meringue off. So carefully put about 1 cup of the mixture onto the silk hat lining and spread it around so that it forms a nice, very thin, very even layer. Remember, we're making wafers. Now pop those trays into a preheated oven at 350 Fahrenheit and wait until they're nice and golden brown. They should look even and crispy. Now here's the fun part. Flip it over onto a parchment paper and then lift off the silk hat after it's cooled for about 15 seconds. Isn't that satisfying? I remember when we used to have to peel off tin foil and that you just break every single one and just hope that one of them wouldn't be broken. Now on to the buttercream. So first take 2/3 cup of water and 2 cups of sugar and set it on high, leave it alone for a bit. Take the other egg yolks, all 12 of them, dump them into a stand mixer with a whisk and let it go. You have to get the sugar at just the right temperature. I don't have a candy thermometer, but the trick that my dad taught me is to keep lifting up the spoon once it started boiling until it spins a thread. Now watch this, here it comes. Do you see that? After the drop, there's a little thread. That's how you know the sugar's ready. So by now, your egg yolks will be this nice creamy yellow color. Keep the whisk going a little bit lower and then gradually pour your sugar syrup into the egg yolk mixture. Make sure that you're careful it doesn't splatter back on you because it's quite hot. You can see I have a little helper here. You just want to keep the whisk going once it's done until the bowl feels cool to the touch. It should be a pale yellow color. You can tell that my daughter actually really likes it just the way it is, as she's cleaning off that whisk and getting most of it on her face. Now it's time to add the butter. Take a pound of butter, cut it up into small cubes, switch out to the paddle attachment and drop those suckers in. You'll see it gradually thicken up, and when it becomes this nice icing, thick consistency, it's time to add the good stuff. You can take a couple tablespoons of brandy or rum, totally optional if you're not into that. Once it's a nice thick icing, you can tell here that it's stiff, it's pipeable, and it's ready to go in the fridge. After it's cooled for about an hour, it's time to assemble this wonderful cake. Carefully spread a layer of this rich buttercream onto the cashew wafer, being careful not to press too hard or you'll snap those wafers. And then layer another cashew wafer followed by more buttercream, and so on until you get to the top. Save your prettiest one for the top and then make a nice thick layer of buttercream. Now hang on, we're almost done. Sprinkle those reserved rough chopped cashews over the top. Usually I just do it over the middle third because it's the nicest cut. Cut them in 3, stack them on top of each other, and sprinkle some more on to cover all the edges. So now, wrap it up, freeze it, and after an hour, take it back out and use an electric knife to chop it in 3 even pieces. Save the trimmings, put them away in a little container, and eat those when you don't want to pull out the real cake. And there we have it! A beautiful sans serval. It's rich, it's decadent, it freezes really well, and if you want to be fancy, call it sans rival.